Hey friends, Chris DeMakes here. If you love Chris DeMakes a podcast and you'd like to help us continue bringing you great episodes each week, please take a minute to check out chrisdemakes.com. That's where you'll find our Patreon. Our Patreon supporters get instant access to hundreds of episodes of The After Party, our weekly bonus episode that people have raved to us about for years. You can also get ad-free, early releases of each week's episode of Chris DeMakes a podcast, as well as unedited video versions of the show. Even if you're not sure if you want to sign up, you can go to chrisdemakes.com and sign up for a free account. We'll throw you a free preview episode here and there. We can't thank you enough for all the support. And if you have a few extra bucks and you want to help us keep the lights on, our Patreon is the way to do it. Head to chrisdemakes.com to learn more. Hey everyone. Today we are celebrating the 40th anniversary of the most successful album of Paul Simon's career, and that is 1986's Graceland. Join co-host Chris Fafalios and myself as we break down the writing, recording, and lyrical interpretation of the album's most popular single, You Can Call Me Al. This song and record were a pivotal point in Paul Simon's life, both from a career perspective and a spiritual one. He broke down not only cultural barriers, but barriers deep within himself. And the music video, one of the best that was ever made. So for all this and an odd connection to Celine Dion, stick around.
Hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes a podcast. Hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes a podcast. Hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes a podcast. Hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes a podcast.
All right, Chris, I can't believe it. It's been 40 years, but we're going to talk about Paul Simon, arguably his most famous song, You Can Call Me Al.
Yeah, man. Did you have any sort of relationship with this song or album 40 years ago?
I did. The video.
Yeah.
You know, Chevy Chase was... You know, this is really, I think, before people kind of knew, how Chevy Chase was. It's pretty well known within Hollywood how he can be. So I just knew him from his movies,
right?
You know, Fletch and Caddyshack. I loved him, and Paul Simon was an old guy to me in 1986.
Yeah.
I barely remember. I probably had heard the name Simon and Garfunkel. I definitely heard the name because I remember the 1981 Central Park concert. That was a big deal. That was broadcast on HBO, and I want to say my parents it might have been a pay-per-view thing. I don't actually recall, but their whole story, Simon and Garfunkel, late 60s, early 70s, by 1970, 71, they were done.
Yeah.
They just went meteoric, and a lot of interesting stuff about this record and their relationship, Simon and Garfunkel, very tumultuous.
Yeah, this was definitely my first experience as a little kid. I was 6 years old or whatever when this came out, of knowing who Paul Simon was. And of course, the music video was a big part of that. And there's just something about this song that I think appeals to a little kid. I think it's that lyric, You Can Call Me Al. What does that mean? And there's just something really fun about the way this song sounds. I loved this song when it came out. And Chris, actually tomorrow, from when we're recording this, is the 40th anniversary of the album Graceland. And something that I learned since I studied for this episode, I just watched... There's a Lorne Michaels documentary called Lorne. Did you know that Paul Simon and Lorne Michaels are best friends?
I know, but that kind of makes sense because there was a lot of Saturday Night Live crossover stuff.
Well, I watched the documentary. First of all, I want to give a shout out to my cousin, Jay Kostetter, who was the editor of the Lorne documentary, which I would have watched it anyway. But the fact that my cousin edited it, man, it's hard to say. The fact that my cousin
did the editing?
Yeah, the fact that my cousin did the editing on the documentary made me watch it right away as soon as it was available to watch. But it was interesting. They lived right across the hall from each other because they were such good friends. And the song Graceland, the title track on this album Graceland, was about a trip that Paul Simon and Lorne took together to Graceland.
No way. I had no idea. I just thought that was a title based on everything that the album's based around, and it totally fits in and makes sense from that angle too.
Yeah, this was Paul Simon's 7th studio album, And it was produced by Paul himself and engineered by Roy Haley, who is best known for his work as a producer and engineer with Simon and Garfunkel. So he brought the guy that kind of helped bring the magic about of Simon and Garfunkel. And dude, at this time, this song is kind of about a midlife crisis. And at this time, it seems like Paul Simon is going through that. His relationship with Art Garfunkel completely deteriorated. His marriage to Carrie Fisher fell apart. And his previous record, Hearts and Bones, was a commercial failure. So he's at this real turning point in his life. And we're going to get into the lyrics and everything in this song. But I think that's pretty interesting that he was at this point in his life.
You can't tell me that vibes don't come through a recording. You know, he was going through a divorce. I went and listened to a couple tracks on Hearts and Bones, Chris, and it just feels flat. I don't know how to explain it. The songs weren't necessarily bad, but that emotion, there was something obstructing that emotion from coming out. And of course, what he did on Graceland completely transcended anything he had done before. And let's not forget, you know, Art Garfunkel did have some hits in the 1970s. He had some minor hits in the mid-70s, but he had one of the biggest songs in England in 1979. I don't recall the title right now. And Paul had some, you know, hits, for a lack of a better word, but it was just because I think both of those guys were so enormous as Simon and Garfunkel that they at least got a shot as solo artists out of the gate. But you know, I got to say, before we go any further, Chris, the nail in the coffin really was Graceland. Once Paul put this out, this kind of eclipsed everything that even Simon and Garfunkel did. If you go today, a lot of the older artists, it's interesting. You go to Spotify, you might think like, oh, this band must have a bunch of followers. And a lot of them don't because their audience is older. Art Garfunkel is at 1.1 million Spotify listeners a month, and Paul Simon is at 9.3 million. Simon and Garfunkel's only at 10 million. So Paul Simon and Garfunkel are around the same, you know, at least popularity on Spotify today.
Yeah, it's funny. I think that I've seen a lot of stuff. I think I talked to you about this on the after party or something before. Art Garfunkel, which I do, the one Art Garfunkel song I like is his cover of I Only Have Eyes for You. He is like an amazing singer. Actually, he's a way better singer than Paul Simon. Paul Simon's just a way better songwriter than Art Garfunkel, but it's so funny, like how cocky and like what Art Garfunkel is so cocky and weird. It's so funny. Like it's almost to a point of like, you know, parody or something.
Yeah, it would have been like Andrew Ridgeley being that cocky.
Which Andrew Ridgeley of Wham is actually like the coolest guy ever when you look into him. He was so happy for George Michael's success after Wham. He was like his biggest cheerleader. But yeah, it's really funny. But this album, Graceland, Chris, yes, it became Paul Simon's most successful album. It sold 16 million copies. It won the 1987 Grammy for Album of the Year. It's cited by a lot of people as one of the best albums ever. And I gotta say, like, I remember like kind of liking this album when I was younger. I revisited it in preparation for this episode, and I think there are some good songs on it. I like Diamonds on the Soles of Her Shoes.
Yeah.
I like the song Graceland's okay. I don't know that this is one of the best albums ever. Just putting it out there, just opinion.
Yeah, you know, sometimes as you reflect on records years later, but at the time, I can tell you that, you know, this was so big for Paul Simon because he was an old dude to teenagers. But they wound up on MTV with this song. The video was just so different. Chevy Chase, I mean, there were kids arguing that Chevy Chase sang this. I remember going to school, people thinking that like he's musically, you know, talented and whatnot. And the video truly eclipsed, I think, even the song. It really did back in that time period. And what a cool thing. I mean, here he was middle-aged at this point, and this thing went through the stratosphere, and I don't know if that would have happened just at radio.
Yeah, I think the fact that having a sense of humor, maybe his friendship with Lorne Michaels helped him have access to funny people who had good ideas. I don't know whose idea
That's a good point.
The music video was, but it definitely helps. Like, I kind of thought of this song as like part comedy. Actually, when you read the lyrics and just the way it sounds, it does feel kind of funny. Like even music video aside, there's like a funniness to it.
And considering that they went to South Africa, worked with these musicians, immersed themselves in all the insanity that was going on at that time with apartheid and everything that was happening, to have a song this silly almost seems like, how was this bore out of that? You would have thought that would have been a little more serious, which there are serious songs on the record, but this is the standout.
Yeah, I do think there is something about the sound of the music that inspired Paul Simon on here. He found like a bootleg cassette of South African street music, and he just loved it so much that him and Roy Haley, his engineer, took a trip to Johannesburg and recorded with these South African musicians, which there is some controversy with this because at the time, because of the apartheid, there were people that wanted no one to go there and support. But like Paul Simon said, he loved the music of the people, and he loved the collaboration between white and black musicians. And I think Paul Simon's heart was in the right place. You can research this more and make your own decisions. Eventually, Nelson Mandela invited him to come perform in South Africa, but there was some like controversial stuff about it. But I do think there is a joyousness. Joyousness? Is that a word? There is a
joyfulness.
Joyfulness. That's the word. There is a joyfulness to the sound, which to me makes sense that it relates to this "You Can Call Me Al" song.
Chris, I don't know if any of these African musicians knew even who Paul Simon was, but I can feel their joy in this song. And that's going back when I said earlier about the last record, Hearts and Bones. It was like, you could feel the desperation, the depression, what he was going through in hindsight, looking back. And this record is just like, I could imagine them in the studio with these players. They had to have been smiling ear to ear. You can feel it come through the recording.
Yeah, I could definitely see. We're going to talk about the bass on this song because
oh gosh,
it really stands out on this song. Obviously, especially one part. This bassist must have had the biggest smile on his face the whole time. Could you imagine playing the bass line? Ba-da-dum, bump, bump. Bump, 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 bump with like a straight face.
No. Such a bouncy, happy. You couldn't sit there with a scowl on your mug.
No. This song that we're going to talk about today, "You Can Call Me Al," it was recorded entirely at the Hit Factory in New York City in April of 1986. The song peaked at number 23 on the Hot 100 on May 23rd of 1987. I'm surprised it only went to number 23 for how big I feel like this song was and is.
Well, that kind of piggybacks off what I said a second ago. I don't think this song was as big at radio as it was on TV. I think that, I've said this before, you can't put an importance on what MTV did at that time period. It was the biggest game in town. It was, I'm a little older than you. It was huge. And again, this put a middle-aged guy who he thought probably he was on the back nine of his career at this point. It put him in households all over America.
Inspiring to all us middle-aged people who are out there making music, like that it's never too late. But when you look at Paul Simon or Cher, remember when Cher, If I Could Turn Back Time? She was definitely, was she 50 then?
Yeah, even Madonna up into the early 2000s was still making, music that was getting out there on a huge level. Yeah, I think the age thing isn't what it used to be, especially now that the playing field is wide open with all the technology.
Yeah. I wanted to give everyone, you included, Chris, some context of when "You Can Call Me Al" hit other songs that were popular at that moment when it hit its peak. "With or Without You" from U2, "Looking for a New Love" from Jody Watley. Remember that one?
Absolutely. And I thought that was early 90s. I was surprised it was that early. So are you calling this from 1986 or 87?
Well, May 23rd of 1987.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I have some questions about that, but please keep going.
"The Lady in Red" from Chris DeBerg, not to be confused with Chris DeMakes.
Chris DeBerg is a podcast.
"La Isla Bonita" from Madonna, "Talk Dirty to Me" from Poison, "Wanted Dead or Alive" from Bon Jovi, "In Too Deep" from Genesis, "Always" by Atlantic Starr, and "I Just Died in Your Arms" by Cutting Crew. These were all other popular songs at that moment when You Can Call Me Al hit its peak.
Okay, that makes sense now that I think about it. I think I Just Died in Your Arms came out in 86, which it still was on the radio in 87. I thought that was earlier, like 85. Yeah, I remember all of those songs very well.
Yeah. And one more thing about the music video that I think people will call you out on for saying, I could definitely see someone calling you out, Chris. You know, Chevy Chase actually was pretty good at music. I believe he was one of the original members of Steely Dan, right?
I got to thinking about what I said a moment ago. Yeah, I don't know. Does he play guitar? What does he play? I
could be wrong about this, but I think he was a drummer.
Okay. I was thinking about that. I was like, yeah, but at the same time, I think that people, what I was saying was people, thought he was actually singing the song,
yeah, right.
Because he's, miming in the video.
Chevy Chase was a skilled drummer and pianist.
No kidding.
Yeah. So he actually could play. And that video is really funny, man. Like, just there's those moments where they do like the synchronized dancing together and everything. It's a little side tangent on Chevy Chase. Why does he have to be an asshole? Like, he could be the most beloved guy ever. He's had so many amazing roles and been so funny on so many things. Why? Why does he have to be an asshole?
I have no idea. You gotta wonder what the behind the scenes was like. Did he have the same agent as somebody else? A lot of times that'll happen where you'll have the same agent and all of a sudden this guy's getting $1 million deal and you're not. I don't know any of his business deals. I do remember them being on, I think it was the cast maybe of Caddyshack. I don't know if you ever saw this. They're on like some TV show and the host asked him something and he walked off set. So, I'd like to be a fly on the wall with what the heck was going on back then.
I mean, he was a cast member on this show that I love, Community. And, it had a lot of famous people on it. Donald Glover, Joel McHale, Allison Brie. Like, it had an amazing cast. John Oliver. Such a funny show. Such a good show. And everybody hates him. They killed him off on the show. The whole cast hates him. They talked about him being racist. They talked about him being just an asshole to everybody. Like, why? At that point in your career, you were on a successful, beloved show. Like, I'm talking like in the past, 10 years ago. Why?
Yeah, I don't know. And it, now that I think about it, it makes sense that his talk show only lasted a month or whatever.
Right.
That he had in the early, because he couldn't get guests. Nobody I'm not going on his show. He probably was hitting up everybody that was popular, No, he belittled me at the, the Christmas party a couple years ago. I'm not going to go on his show.
He's freaking Clark Griswold. He could be beloved to the day he dies because of that alone, Like, it's just crazy.
Yeah, man, it's funny. Like I said, you really wonder what went on behind the scenes.
Well, speaking of behind the scenes, I think it's time to dig into You Can Call Me Al. Like, at least the behind the scenes of what I could uncover in, trying to learn about this song and how it was created and everything. But
real quick, but before we jump in, I want to say either you told me this or I saw it. Did you see Weird Al play You Can Call Me Al when you saw him?
I did. Yeah, when I saw
You did. Okay.
Yeah, last year went and saw him in Philly, and he just did a sincere cover of it.
If you'll be my bodyguard, I can be your long-lost pal. I can call you Betty, Betty, when you call me, you can call me Al.
I think at that point, I already loved the concert, but at that point, I was like, this is so amazing. He's just covering this great song, and love that Al, too. I love that Al.
All right, let's get into this sucker. The intro starts with a mixture of synth saxophone, and some actual saxophone. I really hear synth saxophones here. I don't really hear real instruments.
Yeah, I tried to really zone in with my ears, and I mean, you're in a band with horns, so you would know. Yeah, I think you'd be more attuned to what's real and what's synth than I would, for sure. So yeah, you're hearing mostly synth, right?
Yeah, and not that that's a bad thing. It's just that's the tonal quality that's coming through at me. That's what I'm hearing. I'm not, there might be some sax buried way back there, or the sax may be run through. Remember, there was synth emulators. You could run guitar through synths at this point and get that sound. Bands like Judas Priest were using it in the mid '80s, and Iron Maiden was using synth guitars. Right. So but it sounds like synth to me, not like real instruments, but it very well could be.
Are you familiar with this Adrian Belew guy?
I've heard the name, but I never knew where he was from. He's the guitarist and frontman for King Crimson, who I know who they are, but I didn't know that that was his name.
Yeah, so this Adrian Belew, like Chris said, he's known as the guitarist and frontman for King Crimson, but also worked with everyone from Frank Zappa to David Bowie to Nine Inch Nails. It's said that some of these sax textures were created on a guitar synthesizer. He said, this is a quote, "I had written a variety of saxophone emulations from baritone to alto, which had a realistic yet unorthodox quality. Paul spilled out each part exactly as he wanted them for the iconic beginning of the song. They may have added real saxophones later, but my synthesized saxophones are definitely there as well. I'm sure very few people realize that." So this guy doesn't even know for sure, if the real saxes are in there.
Yeah, it says they may have added real sax later. I don't hear it.
Yeah, right. Also, we already brought it up. We got to shout this guy out, Chris. Bakithi Kumalo is the bassist on this song, who plays the very bouncy, iconic bass line.
Right, and is he somebody they got in South Africa? Is he a guy that lived in the States? I don't know.
Bakithi is a South African bassist, composer, and vocalist. And this is what he's best known for. He's best known for playing the fretless bass on Graceland.
So cool.
Yep. Yeah. Bakithi Kumalo. Remember that name, everybody. And we got this amazing intro with a long, spaced out tom fill that leads right into verse 1.
Yep, those saxophones and synth sax, they cut out when verse 1 starts, but the music pretty much remains the same otherwise.
A man walks down the street, he says, "Why am I soft in the middle now? Why am I soft in the middle? The rest of my life is so hard. I need a photo opportunity. I want a shot at redemption. Don't want to end up a cartoon in a cartoon graveyard. Bone digger, dogs in the moonlight. Far away, my well-lit door. Mr. Beer Melly, get these mutts away from me, I don't find this stuff amusing anymore. If you be my..."
You had written, you only noticed this upon more listens, there is a guitar that kind of mimics the vocal melody. That guitar is interesting. If you zone in on it, you forget the vocals there. And verse 1, I don't know if you noticed this, Chris. Verse 1, Paul's vocals, I don't want to say it's almost inaudible, but you really have to listen to it. And my gosh, when verse 2 comes in, it's like, there it is. I don't know why they mixed it that way. If you go back and listen, it's wild. I would say it's a dB to a dB and a half, maybe more, maybe close to 2 dBs down lower than the second verse.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like they wanted to get your ear really in there, like really listening hard at what he's saying. And then by the time the second verse comes, you're going to hear everything he's saying because it's properly mixed at that point. Very strange. I've never noticed that before.
I didn't notice that at all. I wonder why that choice. Maybe they wanted to, like anything else, build up the excitement and intensity as the song went on, or what?
I don't know. And that guitar part you're talking about, again, if you just listen to that, it'll take you away from the vocal because it's mixed kind of loud in that verse 1. And then subsequent verses, you can hear his voice perfectly. I don't know why they did that. Inaudible is the wrong word. You can hear the vocal, but it's not, EQ'd right in your face. It's not right there like the rest of the song.
Interesting. So, Chris, you want to read these verse 1 lyrics? Do you want to start?
I'll read verse 1. I'll let you take the next one. Here we go. Verse 1. A man walks down the street. He says, "Why am I soft in the middle now? Why am I soft in the middle? The rest of my life is so hard. I need a photo opportunity. I want a shot at redemption. Don't want to end up a cartoon in a cartoon graveyard. Bone digger, dogs in the moonlight. Far away, my well-lit door. Mr. Beer Belly, get these mutts away from me. I don't find this stuff amusing anymore."
Dude, these are such good lyrics. So good. Don't you feel what he's feeling? Don't want to end up a cartoon in a cartoon graveyard. I don't know exactly what a cartoon graveyard is, but I I know exactly what he's singing about here. Who hasn't felt this way at some point? You know, especially if you're a musician who had success in your earlier career and then feeling like this middle-aged person with a little bit of a gut and just wanting another shot at that success. Like that has to be what he's singing about here.
Well, a couple things are hitting me now with the Lorne Michaels connection, because do you remember the skit on SNL, Middle-Aged Man?
I don't.
Oh, it was hilarious. It was these two guys, and they would run down the street kind of with beer bellies, and the song was like, middle-aged man.
You know, you ought to put some baking soda on those battery terminals. That way they won't corrode.
Why? I never would have thought of that. I mean, how do you know this stuff?
I know because I'm middle-aged man. Middle-aged man.
You know, I'm wondering if maybe that came into play at all. As far as a cartoon graveyard, remember, people used to read the funnies every morning. They'd read the cartoons. They'd read, that was something people did. They didn't have, have computers and phones to look at funny memes and whatnot. So I don't know. Some cartoons had been around for 50, 60 years. Maybe that's a cartoon graveyard. You don't want to be a parody of yourself. Bone Digger, Mr. Beerbelly. I mean, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Get these mutts away from me. I've heard of mutton chops, but those are sideburns, right?
I think that the mutts are just like, that he took this trip to South Africa and he's, I picture him walking through the streets, and I don't want to assume anything about South Africa, but I picture in my mind, like, there's some dogs that are in the town that are just like the town dogs that are hanging out and stuff. That's what I picture in my mind with that line.
And I don't know if he was walking around then. It sounds like he had a lot of trouble going and fighting for the cause over there. He was getting death threats and whatnot. So he may have went straight to the studio from the airport. I again would love to have been a fly on the wall.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's also some really cool musical things that happen here in this verse. On that bone digger line, we get those like African sounding background vocals that are like deep in there, like
those swells. Yeah.
So cool. And on that line, I noticed that "Get These Mutts Away From Me." Is it supposed to emulate like the pitter patter of dogs' paws, like the percussion going on there? Did you notice that?
Get these mutts away from me, I don't find.
Yeah, I didn't think about it though. I mean, yeah, very, very well could have been like, yeah, this is the dog running down the street.
Yeah, very, very cool. But basically, what I take away from this verse is it's at least partially autobiographical here. He doesn't want to become a stereotypical middle-aged guy, and he's going through all the middle-aged stuff. Divorce, can I still be relevant, all these years later? His last album bombed. So this is coming from a real place. And I think it's impressive that he could write a song that's so like uplifting, because you could go the other way. You could write even more depressing songs at this point.
And I mean, look how pretty the men and women were on MTV at that point. So, making this record, he's got to be thinking, I have no chance of getting on this vehicle. I'm too old, and everything that happened is awesome. I mentioned before about the vocal being kind of buried in verse 1, and I said it comes up in verse 2. I meant to say it comes up in chorus 1. I mean, it's present there. In chorus 1, we get the sax that comes back, or the synth sax.
If you'll be my bodyguard, I can be your long lost pal. I can call you Betty, and Betty, when you call me, you can call me out. A man walks down.
If you'll be my bodyguard, I can be your long-lost pal. I can call you Betty, and Betty, when you call me, you can call me Al. What is going on?
So, I had no idea what he meant with the bodyguard and long-lost pal, but I think those are such like creative, fun words. I didn't see how it related to Betty and Al, and I thought that maybe, I picture Al is Paul Simon here, but I thought it was because maybe, Paul Simon's like small in stature. He's a small guy, and he kind of thinks of the woman as the bodyguard. And I think of that as being self-deprecating, making fun of himself. And he's the long lost pal. He's the little guy. And this woman is sort of his bodyguard. That's what I took away from it anyway.
There's also kind of a sentiment here that I was feeling, Chris, and I don't know, this might be far reaching, but it's kind of like, the white picket fence, 2.5 kids. It's Al and Betty. They live down the road. It's just, you can call me Al. I'm going to call you Betty. We're just normal everyday people. I'm just some middle-aged guy.
Chris, I actually got the story about who Al and Betty are.
Okay.
So it comes from a 1970 party that Paul Simon hosted with his wife, Peggy Harper, at the time. Paul's friend, the composer Stanley Silverman, brought along another composer named Pierre Boulez, and he called Paul Al and Peggy Betty. Not because he was being rude, it was just what he thought their names were.
But how would you remember that 17 years later? I guess you would if it struck you as funny or something, and all of a sudden you're going to put it in a lyric of that's crazy.
Yeah, so I think it must have been that him and his wife thought that was funny, and maybe they started calling each other that. So
yeah, that's awesome.
That's where that part comes from. Yeah, I knew I looked that up thanks to songfacts.com for that little tidbit. And and dude, this idea of a long lost pal or someone from your past coming back into your life, I see that as a recurring theme in Paul Simon's songs, because my favorite Paul Simon song is Still Crazy After All These Years. Do you know that song?
Yeah.
In that song, he runs into an old girlfriend in the street. And so I feel like that theme, once again, pops back into this song. This is someone from my past long ago that I'm seeing again. And I think that's pretty cool.
You're longing for something that you no longer can have. And those are things you dwell about in middle age.
Yeah.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda, what if,
And relate that to also music, to wanting to have that success again.
Yeah.
Against the wind. I know what I know. I've said what I've said. We come and we go. That's the thing that I...
Hey, everybody, don't go anywhere. We got lots more to talk about with You Can Call Me Al right after a few words from our sponsors.
Here at Chris DeMakes a Podcast, we're proud to call DistroKid a sponsor. And if you're a band or artist looking to release your music, you can head to distrokid.com/VIP/DeMakes to get 30% off your first year with DistroKid. Getting your music out on all the places people stream music, like Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, YouTube Music, and Amazon Music, is just the tip of the iceberg as far as what you can do with DistroKid. Get pre-saves with Hyperfollow. Pay your collaborators with splits. Stop music thieves from stealing your music and uploading it to streaming services without your permission with DistroLock. Make a mini video to use on your socials. Create Spotify canvases for your songs. Easily withdraw your earnings. Even use great built-in tools like Mixia and Instant Share to mix and collaborate. I could go on and on about all the benefits of releasing your music through DistroKid, but why not go see for yourself and save 30% on your first year at the same time? And support a sponsor of your favorite podcast. Head to distrokid.com/VIP/DeMakes to learn everything you need to know about DistroKid. That's distrokid.com/VIP/DeMakes.
Hey, I'm Chris Fafalios, producer of Chris DeMakes a Podcast, and also host of One Hit Thunder. Each week on the One Hit Thunder podcast, we take a look into a one-hit wonder band or artist to determine if they deserved more success or if they were lucky to even have a hit at all. We've covered When in Rome, Jaquan, Shanice, Yellow, Squirrel Nut Zippers, Jesus Jones, Positive K, Mazzy Star, and hundreds more. With new episodes every Wednesday and special guests from the worlds of music and comedy, we always have nonstop fun, and maybe, if we're lucky, we discover some new favorite music. So if you love great songs and you often find yourself asking, whatever happened to that band? Check out One Hit Thunder wherever you get your podcasts.
A man walks down the street, he says, why am I short of attention? Got a short little span of attention, and whoa, my nights are so long. Where's my wife and family? What if I die here? Who'll be my role model now that my role model is gone, gone? He ducked back down the alley with some roly-poly little bat-faced girl. All along, there were incidents and accidents, there were hints and allegations. If you'll be my body.
A man walks down the street. He says, why am I short of attention? Got a short little span of attention, and whoa, my nights are so long. Where's my wife and family? What if I die here? Who'll be my role model? Now that my role model is gone, gone. He ducked back down the alley with some roly-poly little bat-faced girl. All along, there were incidents and accidents. There were hints and allegations.
Yeah, I mean, you get the word short in there twice. You had mentioned his small stature, so I wonder if that's a play on words. Why am I short of attention? Well, you're small. Maybe people don't see you. Got a short little span of attention. He reiterates it there. Who'll be my role model now that my role model is gone? He ducked back down the alley. Wouldn't that have been Betty? Wouldn't that have been she?
Well, I don't know. Just because it's his long-lost pal doesn't mean it's his role model. I don't know who the role model is, but I will tell you, Chris, that got a short little span of attention from Paul's own words. It was a penis joke. He's making a penis joke there.
Poor Paul.
That's what he said about it. But, dude, does this make you think what's going on here in this second verse? Does this make you think about another song? Where's my wife and family? What if I die here? What's this make you think of from a few years earlier?
I'm blanking. What do you got?
It makes me think of Once in a Lifetime from Talking Heads. And you may ask yourself, where is that beautiful house?
Yes.
And you may tell yourself, this is not my beautiful wife. It makes me think of that. I wondered if he was referencing that.
I don't know. That's a good, the delivery here is kind of the same as that song. It's, yeah, I hadn't really thought of that. Something else I want to mention now that you brought that up. It reminded me when I was listening earlier today. Do you get it all? Did you ever get a vibe from Adam Duritz, Counting Crows, in his vocal delivery that he was a Paul Simon fan?
I bet he is.
Well, yeah, I mean, singer-songwriter, I mean, that's easy to say he probably is, but it was interesting. That jumped out at me. I was like, wow, I'm feeling just Paul's delivery and the way that he enunciates and things, and this doesn't sound like a Counting Crows song at all, just Adam's kind of vocal delivery, so I don't know.
Stream of consciousness type vocals where you're not really in these verses, you're not really sticking to a certain like pattern, but it works so well. When I think Adam Duritz, I think Bob Dylan.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the
yeah.
the big one, sure.
Right, but I'm sure that he was an influence as well. And this verse, once again, roly-poly little bat-faced girl.
And I have to interject right now. I love this song. I think it's awesome. And I've often thought of nonsensical lyrics. I've written a number of them. Most of my lyrics are like that. And I've said this to the band before, and they always are very quick to say, but you didn't. But I feel like if I would have wrote this verse and brought it to my band, they'd be like, what? No, you're not singing this. This means nothing. This is stupid. And I've thought that about many lyrics, but that goes back to the conviction with the person who's singing it and the mystery behind it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't have to know what the mystery that's shrouded in lyrics. That's the magic.
Yeah. Definitely. And it's bringing about questions. Who is this role model that's gone? It made me think like, dude, have you ever had someone in your life that you idolized that let you down?
Of course. I mean, that could be your parents. That could be anybody. We're all human. I'm almost wondering now. Almost wondering if he's talking about himself here.
Ooh.
Is the bodyguard himself? You're walking away from me. I don't feel safe. You're walking away, meaning the young man of who I was, and here I am with my beer belly, wondering who the hell I am today.
Wow, now you're getting deep. Who will be my role model now that my role model is gone, and the role model was the younger, successful me?
Yeah.
duck back down the alley with some roly-poly little bat-faced girl.
Yeah. Back before his belly, hid his manhood.
Interesting.
Because he talks about that.
Yeah, man. Oh, man. I like this train of thought. I don't know whether it's right or not, but I love the thought of that. That's cool.
We need to get Paul on the show. If he was here, maybe we would know.
Dude.
Maybe we would know.
I kind of feel like we could someday maybe get, I don't know. I don't know. It would be awesome if we could.
I feel like we could get Art Garfunkel, but that might be a letdown. Hey, we couldn't get Art, but we got his cousin Bill Garfunkel from the Art Garfunkel tribute band. He'll be here next week.
Garfunkel.
Chris, chorus 2.
If you'll be my bodyguard, I can be your long lost pal. I can call you Daddy, and Daddy, when you call me, you can call me out. Call me out.
When I'm riding in the van with my bandmates, sometimes, we're listening to music and everybody's having conversations about the drum sounds. Oh, I really love the drum sounds on this song. And then they'll have a conversation like, oh no, I don't like these at all or whatever. I never have strong opinions on drum sounds. I know when something sounds bad, but as long as it sounds pretty good, I'm like, that sounds cool. I like in your face drums, I think. I'd be very interested in how drummers feel about the drum sounds on this song, because I think they sound cool.
Well, remember, we were in everybody, and I mean everybody. It didn't matter if it was Robert Plant, Paul Simon, these guys from the 70s. They didn't want to be dinosaurs, so they were staying with the technology. This song is very 80s in a lot of ways, with the synths and whatnot. So yeah, I think that the snare sounds great. I think the drums sound cool, but it could be argued now, though, they sound dated and this sounds like 1986. Well, that's when it's from.
Right. Chris, are you ready to get into this penny whistle solo?
A penny whistle solo. Where did this come from?
I mean, I guess from South African music would be my guess, but also, is this the biggest song to ever feature a penny whistle solo?
It's maybe the only one that I know of, unless there's children's cartoons that has a penny whistle solo.
I got one for you, Chris.
What do you got?
It might be bigger. I don't know. So the penny whistle is also known as a tin whistle, and there is a tin whistle featured in My Heart Will Go On from Celine Dion from Titanic.
Oh, of course, at the end.
Well, at the beginning, it starts with it.
No, it does start. Yeah, you're right. I never even thought of that.
That's the only other song I could find with a penny whistle, aka tin whistle.
And that song, it's a great song, but it's pretty depressing. This is uplifting. So at least we get an uplifting song for the penny whistle here.
Yeah.
Call me out.
This penny whistle solo is performed by jazz musician Morris Goldberg, who's a South African saxophonist. I noticed that as we got further into the solo, we get these sort of rising bass sounds. It almost sounds like a second bass track, unless those aren't bass, and instead we're getting some sort of other instrument. It sounds like bass to me. I would love to see a documentary of the recording of this song to know what's what.
I think that you're hearing, I think that's synth bass. I could be wrong. It almost sounds like it was a synth bass with a toggle switch, on the synth that you can dip the sound a little bit. I don't know exactly. At the same time, it could have been bass ran through a synth, an emulator of some nature. People were doing wacky stuff in the 80s. This record, This was one of the first records done, with digital editing. And so this is before Pro Tools, but basically it was on an Apple computer. You would go in with this program and you would take your analog tape and you'd do a dump. Now, you couldn't edit vocals and edit instruments. You could just take this section right here and fly it to this section. So you could take the horns from here and put it here, or you could rearrange, edit. It was very rudimentary editing at that point, but it was said from the engineers and everyone who worked on the record that the record wouldn't have been able to get done without that.
Right. I also got to give a shout out again, Chris, to Bakithi Kumalo at the end of this solo. They let him go kind of wild. He's kind of getting crazy on the bass. He goes off a little bit, and I love that.
All right, so after Bakithi Goes Wild, sounds like one of those videos from the 90s. Bakithi Goes Wild. We get a re-intro. All the music cuts out and goes back to just that sax hook for one time through, and then the additional instrumentation joins back in for the remaining 3 times.
And it's worth noting, Chris, talking about the music video one more time, that at this is the part where Paul and Chevy do their choreography, where Paul is pretending to play the sax and Chevy is pretending to play the trumpet. Once again, man, if you just watch this music video, I love Chevy Chase when I watch this music video. And it's really funny because he's so much taller than Paul Simon, too. I think that's part of the funniness of it. I think Chevy Chase is famously a pretty tall guy, and Paul Simon is famously a pretty short guy. So it just adds to the charm of this whole thing.
Well, and you can tell there's times when he doesn't mean it. He almost hits Paul in the face with the trumpet. And Paul's kind of doing one of these. And you can tell that it's off the cuff, that it's them just being kind of silly. And I don't know what the budget for that video was, but it couldn't have been much.
Yeah.
And the mileage that they got out of that. Remember, these were when people were making $250,000 videos. Just one video. $250,000 back in '86 is probably $750,000 or $1 million today.
Yeah, for sure. And it just goes to show you, if you have a good idea and a memorable idea, you don't need to spend $1 million on a music video. Spike Jonze proved that in the 90s. How many videos he made that were big, huge videos that he made with the equivalent of a camcorder or something, $5,000.
Well, yeah. And this video reminds me a lot of a video that came out about 20 years later from OK Go.
Oh.
Where they're on the treadmills.
Yeah,
you ever seen that one?
Of course.
Yeah, that it was shot in one take, kind of off the cuff, and didn't cost anything. And look at how much mileage they got out of that video. So very, very cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. You ready to get into verse 3 here, Chris?
I am. I want to continue the story. Here we go.
Man walks down the street. It's a street in a strange world. Maybe it's the third world. Maybe it's just first time around. Doesn't speak language. He holds no currency. He is a foreign man. He is surrounded by the sound. Cattle in the marketplace, scatterlings and orphanages. He looks around. He sees angels in the architecture, spinning in infinity. He says, amen, hallelujah, if you be my bodyguard.
A man walks down the street. It's a street in a strange world. Maybe it's the third world. Maybe it's his first time around. He doesn't speak the language. He holds no currency. He is a foreign man. He is surrounded by the sound. Cattle in the marketplace, scatterlings and orphanages. He looks around. He sees angels in the architecture, spinning in infinity. He says, amen and hallelujah.
I got chills. When you're reading the lyrics, because it's so cool when I just have this picture in my head that he's going through all this bad stuff. He's at this turning point in his life. And it is this trip that he takes that inspires him. He's inspired by the people he meets. He's inspired by the culture. He's inspired by the architecture. And then in the story I'm creating in my head, he's inspired by all this stuff. And then it inspires him to go home and write music and record music and have his biggest song ever. I think that's so cool.
Well, there's a lot of little innuendos in here. Is he speaking of monetary currency, or is he speaking of self-worth and currency? That kind of sparked that thought when I read that. It seems like he's speaking of himself here. A man walks down the street. It's a street in a strange world. Maybe it's the third world. Now, I don't know if back then or even now, I don't think South Africa is considered third world.
Right. Also, it's kind of a weird thing to say about anywhere, like referring to a place as third world. It feels like pretty shitty to say.
Right. And all that means is that the majority of the population, I never knew what the definition was. The majority of the population lives under the poverty level.
Okay. Right.
A lot of them, a lot of people don't have electricity, running water, access to proper nutrition in food. And it's crazy that still goes on today with the abundance of food that we have on this planet. He's a foreign man. Well, yeah, if he's speaking of himself, he's foreign, surrounded by the sounds of these new sounds he's hearing. Yeah. This guy in the corner blowing a penny whistle out of nowhere. He looks around, he sees angels in the architecture. Maybe he's starting to see light again, because of the divorce and his last album bombing, etc.
Well, here's a couple things that it makes me think, Chris. One, I love that you called out that he holds no currency. When he goes here, when he's in America and walking through the street, everyone's recognizing him. He's famous. He goes there, he's anonymous again. Also, he sees angels in the architecture. He's saying amen and hallelujah. These people that he might be experiencing, at least in this story, people who have less than people do wherever in America, but they're still happy. That maybe they're happier than he is, someone who's rich, famous, and he's going through all these like what we would call first world problems. He goes to this place where maybe people have less, but they're joyous. They're creating joyous music, and he's inspired by that and reminded like, yo, things aren't that bad.
Yeah, and whether you're religious at all, it's here nor there. But people go on spiritual retreats, they call them, and a lot of times it's just I went through a divorce, let's say, or something bad happened to a family member, and I just can't get on with life. I'm drinking too much. I'm doing this, and next thing you know, the guy's up in the Himalayas with doing some crazy hike, something that he'd never do before, and it almost sounds like Paul was kind of searching at this point, and these lyrics definitely reflect that.
Yeah, it's very cool. It is a little bit of like, not everyone can drop everything and take a trip to wherever to find themselves. Like, he did have the resources to go do that. I feel like that could be a critique of this whole theme, but it doesn't always take going somewhere real far away. It could be, I don't know, driving a few hours to another city or crossing the border into Canada or something. Who knows? Just sometimes it takes getting out of your comfort zone to be inspired.
Yeah, I mean, you move the next state over. It doesn't have to be something super crazy. It's just getting you out of yourself and meeting new people and trying something different. Because if if you stay where you're at, you're treading water.
That's right, absolutely. And then, Chris, we get into chorus 3. We get a third chorus in this song. We're really driving it home.
Yeah, this chorus ends with "Just Call Me." That leads into the bridge.
Yeah,
you can call me Al. Call me.
Yeah, call me, and then we get in to the bridge.
Hallelujah, if you be my bodyguard, I can be your long lost pal. I can call you Daddy, Daddy when you call me out. Call me, na 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 na.
if we should necessarily call this a bridge. Is it a bridge or is it a post-chorus jam?
Yeah, I kind of feel like this is just kind of the chorus still going, and I would lean more towards post-chorus jam, but yeah, I'm sure the argument could be made for a bridge too.
Paul Simon does something that Chris DeMakes is no stranger to. We get a sort of scat style na 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 part to the melody, and then in the second half we get some hand drumming solos on the congas. Mm-hmm. Right? That would be congas. Sometimes I mix up bongos and congas. Congas are the bigger ones.
Yeah, I think so. And man, you could put a conga in anything and I'm gonna like it. I don't know. It's just something it's bouncy and it just feels good. I absolutely love that part, which of course leads to the bass break, which is just, again, especially if you're a bass player, it's just like, wow.
Well, the iconic 2-bar bass break in You Can Call Me Out is considered one of the most celebrated in pop history. This is funny, Chris. I found this out. When they reached that part in the song, Bakithi Kamalo said to Paul Simon, "Hey, Paul, it's my birthday today. Can I play a little bit more on the part where there's a break?" And Paul said, "Go ahead. If it's good, we'll keep it." And that's where he played this. He played it on a fretless Washburn bass, and he improvised that lick in one take. And then it was some studio magic. Now, Roy Haley realized that the first bar sounded crazy when you played it backwards, so he flipped the tape, spliced the reversed version onto the end of Kamalo's original take, creating the break's impossible sounding second half. It's physically impossible to play. Now, Bakithi would play something that kind of sounded like it live, but you really can't do it. It is the reverse backwards. It's just the first half taken then backwards for the second half. And that's how it all came to be.
Again, like I said, there was a lot of cool studio things going on here. A lot of people that seemed that their eyes were on the project doing stuff like this. And like who would have come up with that? You know what I mean? Like, hey, we should try to flip this. And that's the magic of recording.
Yeah. Very cool. That's the part. I'm a bassist, but I feel like a lot of people wait for that moment in the song. And wow, creating a moment in a song, I think that's one of the keys. Like, you could have a really great song that people don't remember, but if you have a moment that people are waiting for, I think that's something sometimes I forget. Like, we need to create that moment. And this is a very, very, in my life, an important one, I think.
And I think most of the time you don't even know you're creating a moment when you do those things.
Right.
I think that they just happen, and so it's just some accident that happened, and here we are. Chris, the outro of the song goes back to the intro part, but now at the end of the second time through, there's some syncopation from the whole band that starts at the 3:54 mark. So this outro is about probably 45, 50 seconds. I think the song's at like 4:43.
Yeah, and after that syncopation, it leads to like a whole new level of instrumentation being added on top, and it just brings the energy up. There's a big drum fill that leads into some outro vocals. We get some like additional "If You'll Be My Bodyguard" vocals, followed by a catchy and beautiful like melody of like high oohs that I think is like the icing on the cake.
You thought that maybe that was a female vocal. I'm hearing falsetto. I hear Paul in there. I don't know. It could be a lady's voice tucked back there, but it sounds like it's Paul doing it.
Okay, yeah. I wondered if maybe that was just Paul doing falsetto or something. And it's also, we got to shout him out, Chris. On this song is the South African male choral group, which it may have been somebody from this group. Ladysmith Black Mambazo is the name of the group that sings on this song.
Yeah, and it's interesting here, who knows? Ladysmith could be a park or could be an institution in South Africa, but the male choral group is called Ladysmith.
Yeah, who knows? But Ladysmith Black Mambazo is the name of the group. I don't know. Hey, man, just because it says Ladysmith Sister Hazel is a band, and there's no women in that band. You know,
There you go. Yeah, maybe I'm reading into it too much, but that kind of stuck out at me. I'm gonna say it. What a silly song to be the biggest song for this guy's career. Think of some of the stuff that he's penned, Bridge Over Troubled Water, and these songs that are like almost gut wrenching. And then he comes out with this. He had to have been kind of laughing at himself. I went through a divorce. I'm miserable. My career's tanking. I'm old. I'm balding. I got a beer belly, etc. And this ends up being the pinnacle of his career. And Art Garfunkel, what was he thinking when this came out?
I don't know.
For real, here's my bandmate with Chevy Chase taking the complete piss out of himself in this video. I mean, you can't. You had to have been not serious and be having a good time to put that video together.
Yeah. And dude, it is funny. Like, Paul Simon is involved in some of Bridge Over Troubled Water is a perfect example, or Sound of Silence. But then he also is part of writing Cecilia, or You Can Call Me Al, like just completely opposite sides of the songwriting spectrum. And I just think that speaks to like the songwriter that Paul Simon is, that he can capture so many moods. Even on this album, on this Graceland album, it really, it goes the full gamut of moods on this album.
Right. And how many bands in the course of their career, and this was so evident in a lot of the bands I listened to in the 80s, they took a huge career misstep. And you almost wonder, like, could Paul Simon have been laughed at? This album sold, 14 copies. This guy's a wash-up. He made a video with Chevy Chase. It's terrible. Yeah. He's trying to be a pop star? This guy's in his 40s now, Maybe the public wouldn't have bought it, but the public bought it hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah. He released 5 singles from this album, Graceland. Of course, You Can Call Me Al, but also the song Graceland, The Boy in the Bubble, Diamonds on the Soles of Her Shoes, and Under African Skies. Anyone listening can go do some research. There's a very nuanced conversation to be had about all the controversy about this album, but I do believe in everything I read about this, that Paul Simon had the best of intentions, didn't overthink anything, and was inspired to make music that made the world a better place. And I'll leave everybody with a quote from Paul Simon about this album, which, once again, look into it yourself. And I'm not saying that any of us are perfect people or always make the best decisions, but I do think that Paul Simon is a sweet guy. And what he said was, "What was unusual about Graceland is that it was on the surface apolitical, but what it represented was the essence of the anti-apartheid, and that it was a collaboration between blacks and whites to make music that people everywhere enjoyed. It was completely the opposite from what the apartheid regime said, which is that one group of people were inferior. Here, there were no inferiors or superiors, just an acknowledgement of everybody's work as a musician. It was a powerful statement."
Absolutely, and I will expound on that and say that I kind of in a way feel like this saved Paul Simon's spiritual life. This record, I feel like he came out of a very very bad place,
and his career for sure. Because whether you considered him a legendary artist or not, whether you thought that Simon and Garfunkel were too schmaltzy and something to be made fun of, this definitely gave him a whole new part of his career. It's what introduced me to him as a little kid, brought a whole new generation of fans around, and I think it just adds to the legend that Paul Simon is.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for tuning in this week, and happy 40th to Graceland.
I'm Graceland. Memphis, Tennessee, I'm going to Graceland. Poor boys and pilgrims with families, and we are going to Graceland.